I will give you a brief introduction to Afrisnet. Some people are new. Every meeting we do, we have new people who have not been to our presentations before. I'll then give you an overview of the application mentorship program, the guidelines and the expectations, as I mentioned. Then I really want to spend some time talking about graduate school. And I'll cover the admission committees, common application documents. I'll spend some time chatting through the emails to the advisors, statements of purpose, CVs, that's general documents that you write. I will not be doing a detailed technical guidance, but rather provide general guidelines to make sure that we are all up to date. And that's definitely going to make your work easier as applicants, but also make easier the work of the mentors that will be helping you. Okay. Perfect. So Afrisnet is a nonprofit organization which is registered in the United States, specifically in the state of Georgia, and this is since May 2019. What I like about Afrisnet, well, I like a lot of things about Afrisnet. One of them is that it's really an effort that was started by Africans who are in the United States to help their fellow Africans like yourselves. And now we have support from people in many countries. So I'm also one of the two people that founded Afrisnet back in 2018. So our mission is to increase the overall participation of Africans in global and competent research in STEM. My hope is that I can open your mind, sort of give you a general understanding of why this mission is important. This is our website. I've already put this link in the chat. And our network now comprises more than 3,000 people. We are getting more people all the time. Before I move forward, I want to say that if you have registered on our website, you probably have not received confirmation if you registered in the past few weeks. We've been a little bit short-handed. We've focused on this mentorship program, but do not worry, we're going to get to that, and we're going to approve your account so you can have access to the full website. So you can register though, if you haven't done so already. Please do so. I've put the link in the chat as well. Join the network. Registering on the website is the best way to stay in touch. You're going to get all our communications. If you have any webinars, events, we post news updates and other things that are going on at Afrisnet and beyond. So make sure you register if you've not done so already. Why this mission? And so all of you know there are 54 countries in Africa, and this continent has 1.2 billion people. This is around 15% of the global population, but the contribution to global research is still very low. And if you look at the number of researchers per million people, for instance, in the United States or the UK, we have more than 4,000, I believe, nearly 5,000 researchers per 1 million people. This number drops to around 200 researchers per 1 million people in Africa. And Africa is contributing only 1.3% of the global research funding. What this means is that young people like yourselves that have interest in research or would like to offer your contribution to research do not have the training that you need. You don't have the opportunities that you would like to get access to really maximize your research performance. So at Afrisnet, we believe that research is a global undertaking. It's a global enterprise that has global benefits. You know, very good example. The COVID vaccines that were developed by researchers in the United States and in the UK and elsewhere have been beneficial to the people all over the world. And people from all over the world also contributed to the research teams that developed those vaccines. And so there are people from Africa, people from Asia, people from Europe, who all contributed, right? And so the benefit of humanity is that all talented people can really offer their meaningful and maximum contribution to research. So we are trying to also help you offer that contribution in the best places possible in the world where you can offer that contribution. And so there are still limitations in Africa. And so we are trying to encourage you and help you to take advantage of other opportunities that are available in the world, within and without Africa. And so when you look at, for instance, the United States, which I'm showing on this slide here, many international graduate students come to the United States to pursue their master's and PhD degrees, coming from really all over the world. And when you look at the numbers, about 38% come from India, and more than 20% come from China. And the population of India is about the same as the population of Africa. Same for China, but only 10% come from apply from sub-Saharan Africa. Notice that I'm here only showing the applications. When we go to the actual admissions and matriculations, this number drop even lower. Okay, and so there is overall a very low representation of African graduate students at American universities. And this is true in Europe. It's probably true in other countries as well. So the goal of Afrisnet that aligns well with our mission is to increase your research experience because we believe that you are motivated and you are competent. The hope is that we can then help you gain the research experience that you need to be also a relevant researcher on the global platform. So we would like to see more enrollment of African students in research-based and funded PhD programs in the United States specifically. And I will come to the reason why we focus on the United States, but I do want to make it clear that we will help you regardless of where you want to go to graduate school. That is your decision. We don't dictate where you go to graduate school. And of course, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we believe research is a global undertaking where we would like to see talents from all over the world really play their best game at the best institution that they can have access to. And so for that reason, we believe that Afrisnet is also contributing to the intellectual and the cultural diversity in competent graduate programs from China to the United States. And this intellectual and cultural diversity, of course, also improves the academic performance in these graduate programs. So what is this mentorship, the graduate application mentorship? I view it as a comprehensive program through which volunteering mentors would guide you through your graduate school selection, the application process, and even the matriculation process. I will break each one of these down and show you what we do at every specific stage. So you can think about this as having a companion and a guide in your graduate application process, which is great. So we continue to do this because it works. And so we started doing this in 2019. Back then, there were only 2 mentors. We had 16 mentees. We got 10 admissions. The next year, we had 7 mentors, 43 mentees, and 27 admissions. And those numbers continued to increase in 2021. And I don't have the statistics from last year yet, but I'll have this soon. So this year, we have 80 mentors. Let me say that again, 80 mentors. It's 4 times the number of mentors that we had. This might be the first year that we don't have to put anybody on the waiting list. My fingers are crossed, but I'm very excited for you all because we might actually be able to mentor everybody. And that will make me very, very happy. The reason why these numbers continue to increase is because we follow an organic model. So what's that mean? That means that some of these years mentees are mentors are actually former mentees that Afrisnet has mentored, and they are currently graduate students. So Samuel, whom I've been referring to a lot, who is on this call, is actually a graduate student at the University of Southern California. And I worked with Samuel when he was applying to graduate school. And now he is going to mentor some of you. So that's really beautiful. It's a great model. It works very well. And so I hope that you are all going to work really hard in your applications, get into graduate school, and then help us mentor even more Africans so we can keep the torch passed on from generations to generations. There is also other graduate students in the United States that Afrisnet has not mentored, but have also offered to help. Some are in Europe, some are in Africa, some are in China. So you are really being helped by a truly international team that is coming together. And this is great because it means that more people are realizing that our mission through this program is important and necessary. So you are in good hands. We also have postdoctoral researchers, and maybe I'll take a second here and say what a postdoctoral researcher or fellow is, because I am one too, as I mentioned in the beginning. So these postdocs are people who, they are also called postdocs in short sometimes. So these are people who have PhDs. And so in my case, I did my undergraduate at California Baptist University in Riverside, California. And then I went to Indiana University for my PhD, where I did research in cell biology. And so I have a PhD, and now I continued my research training. And so I'm under guidance or advisorship of someone else. His name is Gaudens Danoser here at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. And so I'm receiving more research training to prepare myself to hopefully become an independent researcher where I will have my own laboratory and have students and train other postdocs as well. And so there is more postdocs like myself who are also joining our mentorship program this year. A very good representation. Actually, we have postdocs from Harvard University, postdocs from Yale University, Johns Hopkins University, Stanford University, the University of Georgia, the University of Colorado, Stony Brook, Chinese Academy of Sciences, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. There's some people from postdocs from universities in Europe. So again, really brilliant people who are here to help. So as I mentioned, there is more than 80 of them this year. So some of you have applied to graduate school. I'm aware. I've seen some names that I know of people that I know have applied before. I just couldn't recognize everybody because there's many of you. But I just want to make sure that we have a contextual understanding of what graduate school is, right? And so you can define it as an academic entity that awards postgraduate degrees, and so typically more master's or graduate degrees. And so you could have a department or a college or a school within a large university that has a graduate program. And this typically will prepare you to become a teacher, an expert, or a leader, either in a private or public sectors in your own field of specialization. So, as I mentioned earlier, we really encourage people to apply to programs in the United States. And the reason why we do this is because there is the US remains the global leader in research for many reasons. Number one is just the sheer number of universities that offer graduate degrees, more than 1,000. this is the number of universities. So if we counted the actual graduate programs, it's going to be many folds, this number. A lot of graduate programs in the US will waive tuition and provide monetary stipends, especially for PhD degrees in STEM. So when I did my PhD, I did not pay a dime to go to school. I did not pay anything. Instead, the university, the graduate program, would give me, at the time it was $2,000 every month as a stipend to help cover the basic living expenses. I was in Bloomington, Indiana. This is the case here in Dallas. This is the case mainly pretty much all over the United States. Some graduate programs in Europe also do provide monetary support and also waive tuition. So I think about it as being paid to go to school, which is really, really cool. And so some master's program do offer stipends and they do waive tuitions, but in general, they are much more limited. And so I know I've reviewed all of your applications. Some of you are applying to master's programs. Some of you are applying to PhD programs. Some of you are applying to both. So for those of you who are considering only master's programs, I really would like you to think about why. Consider your qualifications, your experiences, and if you believe that you might be qualified for a PhD, I would really encourage you to target PhD programs instead. As I'm going to tell you in a minute, this is a common misunderstanding. American PhD programs do not require a master's degree for admission. And so I do not have a master's degree, but I have a PhD degree. So I finished my undergraduate or bachelor degree in biochemistry and molecular biology, and then enrolled into a PhD program in genome, cell, and developmental biology right away without getting a master's. If you're not in a STEM degree or in a STEM field, there might be some scholarships or financial support that may be available, but these will be also, again, very limited. And so we're not discouraging you if you're on this call. We may be able to help you. Afrisnet focuses mainly on STEM degrees, but you know, I'm African like yourself, so I understand your desire and your lack of opportunity, your disadvantages. So if you've applied to our mentorship, if we have enough mentors, we may be able to help you. So I've already mentioned this. Yeah, you don't need a master's degree to apply to PhD. Masters will typically be 1 to 3 years, depending on the program and how hard you work. PhDs can take 4 to 6 years, sometimes up to 7. And this is, some people view this as a disadvantage because they say, oh, PhDs take so long in the US. But remember, you can do it without a master's. If you had a master's combined, it would end up taking about the same time. But what this also means is that American graduate programs have, most of the time, they will have the funds to actually support you for that long period of time. So you can really do more experiments and perform much more research, get more publications out, which is going to help you in the long run if you want to continue into a career in research. Everything good so far, Samuel? Everyone still hearing me? We're together?
Yes.
Perfect. And so some general aspects of grad school, and if you've attended some of our graduate information sessions, the so-called GIS webinars, you may notice that I've pulled some slides back. So I'm covering the same information again, but that would be good. I think repeating them is going to be helpful. So the deadlines are typically between November and February. Some programs go until March. Some even have rolling admission systems where they'll take applications throughout the year, but that's typically for masters. PhDs tend to have set deadlines. And so the academic year in the United States runs from August to May. I believe this is true also to many programs in Europe and in China and even in Africa. And so if you are planning to begin grad school in 2024, in August 2024, you would be applying by November and December this year. And so some of you on the call have indicated that you will be applying to grad school in 2024. We still added you to this list nonetheless, and we invited you to this orientation because this information is going to help you as you prepare for your applications next year. Okay. So if you, again, are able to attend grad school in the United States, there's a lot of benefits. Number one, I mean, one of the few things that I've mentioned already is that you would be really attending some of the globally outstanding graduate programs in the world. This is a well-funded research enterprise, over $600 billion in 2019 alone. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure, but this might be more than the budget of many governments in the world combined. You can see the Nobel Prizes that have been won by researchers in the United States in this graph that I'm showing here. This is truly outstanding. Of course, I've picked the highest scientific honor, but if we pick other prizes as well, the US dominates, right? And so you'll be working with globally renowned research faculty, cutting edge research technology and infrastructure. For example, in my research, I work with people who are developing microscopes that are not available anywhere else in the world, right? And so these microscopes are only available sometimes only in our laboratory or in the laboratory of my collaborators. And I can truly say that that would be difficult to find anywhere else in the world. And so when I compete for fellowships, for example, I can say that that is a unique advantage that I have to me that will allow me to answer really unique questions that I may not be otherwise able to answer somewhere else in the world. There is a vast range of research disciplines here in the United States. I can't even begin to list them. But those of you who have applied are familiar with that. Those of you who will be applying and exploring, you will also be quickly exposed to this. When you get into one university website and try to explore the research that's done at one university, and you get lost immediately because there's so much going on. So one also element that I really like about the American system is that the structure is less hierarchical. And so what I mean here is that, for instance, when I began my PhD, my advisor came to me and said, Gabriel, you can address me by my first name. Her name is Sonny Lacefield. And so I would call her Dr. Lacefield, as I was familiar with. And I'm sure most of you in Africa, that's the same way you address your lecturers. You say, you know, Dr. Akufo, Dr. Mutahi, or Dr. So-and-so. So the titles are very important. The hierarchy is very important in some parts of the world, but here in the United States, people communicate on a first name basis. You're all operating more or less on the same level. So that makes communication very easy. It it forces, it allows collegiality, and collaboration as well, right? And so you're not really like afraid of these big professors because you can approach them very easily, calling them by first name and uh, so forth. And so because the country attracts researchers from all over the world, that means that you're also interacting with people from all over the world when you're doing your own research. So in my own laboratory here, where I do research, there are people from Taiwan, people from China, people from Ethiopia, people from India. In the department, there are people from Europe, from Turkey, from almost all over the world who are doing research, and I'm able to interact with these people and collaborate with them as well. So my postdoc advisor himself is from Switzerland. And so it's a truly international community. And there is many benefits beyond your lab. For instance, there's so many things that you can do with a graduate degree from the United States because it's going to be really respected anywhere in the world. And so if you want to go in industry, if you want to go work for companies in Europe, if you want to become a teacher back in Africa or in Asia, want to go do a postdoc in China or Japan or Germany with a degree from the United States, it becomes easier. But that's also true for graduate degrees from Europe, or even graduate degrees from Africa are also being more and more recognized. And so I'm seeing more people come to the United States as postdocs, for example, coming from Africa, and they have their PhDs from universities in Africa. But a degree from the US is definitely well respected all over the world. You get top-notch research training, of course, if you're working with globally renowned faculty. So your publications are much more impactful. They are in high-impact journals, and you're also able to attend a lot of international research conferences. And so if you take any given countries and ask how many international research conferences take place in those countries, a lot of them take place in the United States. I've given an example here of this cell bio meeting, which I attended in Washington, DC last year. And this conference happens every year for cell biologists. And it includes people from literally all over the world who come and meet. So this year it's going to be in Boston, and I'm going to attend it again. This is true if you are in engineering, if you are in any field. There's typically yearly research conferences that are organized by research societies that are based in the United States. So this allows you to integrate into the global research community much more easily. And the more connected you are with a respected degree, with good publications, that comes with job security, be it in private or public sectors anywhere in the world. So what are, I'm trying to read the chat to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. So what are the common admission requirements? And so as I mentioned, for PhDs, you don't need a master's. An undergraduate degree would do it. You need a good grade point average, the so-called GPA. Some of you gave us your GPA. Some of you wrote it very creatively that we can't figure out what it means or what it is. I hope that you will all meet the cutoff. Some of you are below 3.0, so we have to say we are a little bit concerned about that. But we want to get into your case and figure out what's going on. Sometimes if you have a good reason why your GPA has fallen down, and you can show that you've really worked hard to bring it back up and you've done your best in your situation, sometimes you may still get an admission. Research experience is very important, but not absolutely mandatory. Some programs will still take you if you don't have research experience. And what we have learned is that what you really need to do is to show that you've done your best in your context. I will come back to that in a little bit, even if you don't have research experience. And of course, you have to be able to document what you've done. If you are coming from a country that doesn't speak English, you will be required to show proficiency of English. And this is done through tests like TOEFL or IELTS. If you are planning to apply this year and you've not registered for these tests and you will need them, please do so, okay? And most graduate programs, when you go to their websites, they will have a list of exempt countries. So a list of countries that are not required to show TOEFL scores. So like people from Nigeria, in most cases, people from Ghana, more so and so, do not have to, I believe people in Kenya as well, do not need to show English proficiency. So that's a big advantage because the test costs a little bit of money. Some programs require the GRE. Some of you may have heard of it. Others may not have heard of it, but it's a very common test. So if you just Google right now, if you don't know what GRE is, please Google Graduate Record Exam. You're going to learn a lot about it. They are test centers in almost every major city in the world. There are test centers in Nairobi, Kigali, Addis Ababa, in cities in Nigeria, and I'm sure in Accra. And you can register for this test and take it. Excuse me. The good news is that a lot of graduate programs are now waiving the GRE scores. They are no longer required. If a program says that the GRE is optional, then we encourage you to take it if you really, really want to get into that program, or you can just apply to programs that do not require the GRE. If it's optional, it's good to take it because what is going to happen is that if you end up tying with another applicant and they don't have anything else to weigh against you, then they are going to look at the GRE scores. You don't need to have your undergraduate diploma before you apply for a PhD program or a master's program. However, you must complete your undergraduate. Your degree must be conferred before you start your graduate program. And so if you will be graduating from your bachelor with a bachelor degree in May 2024, you can apply at the end of this year for a PhD program that's going to start in August next year. Okay. Again, I covered this information with more specific examples in the GIS webinars, which you can find on the Afrisnet YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed to that channel, make sure you do so. So you can also get updated as we post more videos, but you can also just visit the channel and watch the graduate information session webinars. There are 3 of them, I think. And if you didn't attend those webinars, I highly, highly encourage you to go and watch them again. They'll be very useful to you. Most programs require an application fee, but if you negotiate, typically these fees can be waived. And so if you are struggling or you don't know how to negotiate this, the waiving of these fees, your mentors can help you write this negotiation and navigate it with the graduate program. But in most cases, if you are a competent applicant and you ask for a waiver, they are going to waive it if you negotiate appropriately. And again, we can help for that. My hope is that Afrisnet will also be able to help cover some of the application fees, but our capacity is still limited. I wouldn't say count on that. I think the best thing to do now is to first negotiate the waivers, which we've seen work time and again. And so we are trying to help you with your graduate school application. What is our objective? Why are we doing this? You are in Africa. Your culture is different from the culture of the people that are going to be reading your applications. So we try and bridge those differences because some of us, or most of us, are, a lot of our mentors are actually Americans who were born here, and they are familiar with the culture. And so when they read your documents and they can't understand what you're trying to say, they will ask you for clarification. But what that means is that someone else gets to read your document before the people who are going to review your application actually read those documents. So that's a huge advantage. If there are any cultural differences, they can help align those before you actually submit your applications. And we want to help you present your best selves, right? And so when I'm mentoring students, what I'm really doing is, and those of you that have already been communicating with me with their application documents, you already know this, is that I really spend time on your CV. They want to make sure that your CV matches your statement. Are you really presenting who you are in the context of graduate school, right? So if you are a practicing medical professional, I'm making sure that you're not presenting yourself simply as a medical professional, but you are truly presenting yourself as somebody who wants to get into graduate school. And we're also making sure that you're not leaving out some really important details in your CV that would otherwise help your case as a graduate applicant. And so are you presenting yourself and advocating for yourself accurately? We want to make sure that your communication is to the professional standards of the admission committees that will be reviewing your application, be it oral or written communication. And we also want to hopefully expand and improve your knowledge about the nature and the standards of research-based graduate school. And so some of you may have already learned a lot from either our GIS webinars, but also from my presentation for the past minutes that I've been presenting, right? So even through this orientation, you're going to learn a lot about these graduate programs, and you're going to continue to learn a lot as you work with your mentors. So we're trying to guide you and make sure that you apply to the programs that best fit your qualifications. Sometimes we get interesting emails. Sometimes we get an email that says, I would like to apply to this specific program at Harvard University, and I would like Afrisnet to help me. And so, great, right? It's good that you want to apply to one specific program at Harvard University, but do you know that Harvard University is the top university in the world that's highly competitive? That, very few people in the world can say that I've applied to Harvard and I'm confident that I will get in. Very few people in the world can say that. And that's true for many American universities, right? If you take any university ranking list, and you can find this from many sources. I might have a few examples in this presentation that I will get to. you know, there is many of the top schools are here in the US, and so you have to apply to programs that fit your qualifications. It's okay, it's encouraged, and it's great to also take your chance at highly ranked programs, highly ranked universities. But it's also important to make sure that you apply to a diverse range of programs to increase your chances of admission. And so when somebody tells me that they want to apply only at a specific program at a specific university, my first response is you should apply to more programs because you're not entitled to an admission in that specific program. And you're competing against people from all over the world. We try and send you reminders throughout the mentorship program. So so we're gonna do the pairing. I'll give you the timeline in a little bit, but we're gonna pair you with your mentors. And in the next few months, we'll keep sending you reminders. Have you reached out to professors? Have you written your statements? Have you taken your GRE? Have you lined up the people that are going to write your recommendation letters? Again, as I mentioned, it's kind of be your companion in the process. And so I said that we try to help with your communication. And some of the common documents that we help proofread are documents like your CV, your personal statement, research statement, statements of purpose. And we also provide guidance on how to get good recommendation letters. Of course, you don't write your own recommendation letters, but you have to be aggressive. You have not necessarily aggressive, but proactive in getting good recommendation letters. So right now, if you are planning to apply to graduate school, this is a good time to start thinking about who is going to write your recommendation letters. And this should be people that know you as a student, that know you for a good amount of time, and that have worked with you directly and closely. And so some of you may be sitting in this orientation and later on reach out to me and ask for a recommendation letter. My answer is going to be no, because I've known you for only 1 or 2 hours. In fact, I'm only seeing your name on the screen, so I still don't know you as a researcher or a future graduate student. The same thing is true even if you are my mentee at Afrisnet. I will most likely decline to write a recommendation letter for you because I'm helping you apply, but I really don't know you as a student, right? I haven't taught a course to you so I can speak to your intellectual capacities. And so make sure you reach out to the professors that start thinking about which courses excited you the most, which ones did you actually excel in the most, and who are those professors or lecturers that you really get along well with. If you've worked with somebody in research, they must write a recommendation letter for you if you are applying for a research-based graduate program. And so as we proofread your document, we want to make sure that you understand your audience. We make sure that the content is aligned with your objectives and that the message you write is tailored and structured in a way that is understandable and appealing to the admission committees that are going to be reading your documents. And so your statement of purpose is going to be different from a letter that you would write to your family member, to your cousin. Yes, I see a question in the chat. I'll answer it right away. I think a postdoc can write a recommendation letter for you. That is fine if you have worked with them for a long time. Now, if that postdoc happens to be in a lab that is led by a professor, then I would seek the recommendation letter from that professor instead of the postdoc. And the reason is because the higher the title, the more influential the recommendation letter is going to be. And so why does this matter? And when I later on go to some websites, I'm also gonna touch on the recommendation letters. But when somebody writes you a recommendation letter, it's important that they also state their own qualifications, right? And so if I am a professor who has been doing, I am not, I'm just a postdoc, it's just an example. If somebody who is a professor who has been doing research for 20 years and they've mentored 50 graduate students, writes you a recommendation letter and says, yes, I've mentored many undergraduate students in my laboratory, and I believe that Prince or David or Winnie or Frederick is an outstanding student and would be a great asset to your graduate program, then the committee is more likely to buy into that statement, as opposed to a statement that comes from me as a postdoc who is saying, you know, that Lordina is the second. I'm just picking names that are appearing on my screen now. If I don't pick yours, it's not personal. Or that, you know, Josie is the second undergraduate student that I've mentored. So I hope that makes sense, right? And so if somebody who is writing your recommendation has more experience mentoring students like you, their recommendation is going to carry more weight. And so once we've worked on the content and structured your message, we then can get into the grammar and syntax and make sure that your sentences are not awkward or weird, right? And so I'm seeing a few people that have already been in touch with me. Some of you have sent me your documents and they are still sitting in my inbox. Again, nothing personal. I'm just really busy and I haven't gotten to yours, but I'll get to them. But usually our response is not going to send you a beautiful document that's ready to submit. No, that's not our goal. So if you feel like that's what we're going to do, you're wrong. And this is not the right mentorship for you. We are trying to teach you, right? And so you may get a response that gives you only one comment on your whole document and that says, you need to work on your intro, you need to work on your main body, you need to work on you can improve your conclusion in this way or that. And then you go in and make those changes. And then the mentor may say, okay, now you've written a document, we followed the guidelines. So now I'm gonna go in and really pick on your sentences one by one and make sure that they are appropriate, okay? Somebody asked personal statement, research statement, statement of purpose, are they different? Yes and no. A research statement is obviously going to be focused on your research. Personal and statement of purpose, I think in most cases, they can be interchangeable for the sake of grad school, because they are both your statement. So in a way, I think a statement of purpose is also personal. Although a personal statement can appeal more to your personal history or background, whereas a statement of purpose can hit more on what you want to do as a graduate student, and why you think you're qualified for it. I'm gonna get into a few more details on these documents, especially the statement of purpose. But I think what you're going to write for grad school application is going to be very similar in most cases. And again, I'm going to share some websites that will delve into this in more details. And I encourage all of you to spend time on those websites and read their examples and templates that they provide. So applying to graduate school is a lot of work. If you're not ready to work, you're not going to get an admission. In terms of oral communication, this happens mainly when you get an interview. We ask our mentors to try and give you a mock interview. There might be some people here on the call that have done mock interviews with. I think we did one with Samuel, right, Samuel? I can't remember. It was a little while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the goal is to make sure that again you understand the audience, right? So who are you going to speak to in this interview? We look, I would look at your technology, right? And so I'll tell you, the room you're sitting in is pretty dark. I can't see your faces. So make sure that you don't use that room or, put a light in the room if you're going to do it there, right? And I may tell you, the modem you're using now is a little bit slow. Your internet is breaking off quite a bit. And so maybe if you can go and do the interview on campus and we'll try to get a stronger connection, try that. The good thing is that I'm telling you this 1 week, several weeks, or a few days before you actually do your real interview. So you have time to get ready, right? I may make comments on, the clothing you're wearing, right? And so, for example, I'm not really wearing the best shirt for a Zoom meeting, right? I just picked it up quickly this morning. But my shirt has a lot of colors, but this is a good example for you too. You can see how, like my shoulders here is too bright because it's white, right? And then there's some green, there's some lines, right? I'm not telling you to go shopping if you get an interview or spend a lot of money on your clothing. I don't think that's the most important thing. But you want to try and minimize all the potential distractions. The more professional you look, the bigger the impact you're going to make right off, right in the beginning. And so we may provide you guidelines on how to prepare for that interview as well. And we recommend that you typically find a solid color piece of clothing on the top, right? So like one green color. Typically stay away from white and black, right? Because those are two. If you're in a dark room and you're wearing a black shirt, you may not be visible. Likewise, if you're in a very dark room, a bright room, and you're wearing a very dark room, then the contrast gets pretty harsh, right? So colors like blue, green, right? Some people like purple, right? Choose whichever color you like, really. Just make sure that your clothing is not very distractive. And there are tons of videos on YouTube on how to do Zoom interviews, either for grad school or other things, right? So I would spend some time on Zoom as well, right? As you're watching Premiership and soccer games and basketball games and other things, spend some time also on these things. We want you to prepare ahead of time, as I mentioned. And so additional notes on communication. We really want to make sure that you know yourself. You're probably thinking, Gabriel, of course, I know myself. But in an academic and research context, some of you have sent me your statements and they come back to you with a lot of red marks, a lot of edits, a lot of comments on them. And what I'm really trying to do is to make sure that, again, you understand your qualifications and experiences in the academic and the research context as a potential graduate student. And our mentors are going to do the same. So I should also mention that our mentors have already had an orientation. So we've had an orientation with them and we've told them the same things we're telling you. So they'll be ready to help you when you get paired to them. We want to make sure that you advocate for yourself without entitlement. And I give you some examples. We've seen both cases. And so we've seen students who don't advocate for themselves as well as they should. And so they have really outstanding experiences, but they're not talking about themselves, about those experiences. I once mentored a student who did not have research experience in the real sense, but they had actually attended a research conference and presented a small work project that they had done as part of their thesis project in a lab. And when the student talked about their qualifications, they did not mention that particular conference. And so that was a miss, because for a student who is in Ghana or Nigeria or Rwanda or Ethiopia, for you to get a travel award, I'm seeing some names of people who I know have traveled to the US for research conferences. So somebody pays your flight and you come and you present a poster at an international research conference in the United States. That's a huge deal to the admission committee, because the only way you can get that award is that you're outstanding. And that means that another team of researchers has reviewed your profile, and they actually found you worthy of that award. So that speaks volumes. And if you do not talk about that experience, what it means to you and what you presented at that conference, you are not advocating for yourself appropriately. On the flip side of that, you have a student who is an undergraduate at an African university, and the research that they did was to write a questionnaire and distribute it to local merchants at a local market in their local city or town about the awareness about malaria or HIV or tuberculosis. Or they are asking about their common hygiene practice and how that relates to gastrointestinal diseases, for example. How many times do you wash your hands every day? Do you have water here? And how many times do you get gastrointestinal disease or troubles? And then they write some sort of conclusion, they present their work, and then that's their thesis project. That's beautiful, right? You've done what you can do in your local context, but you do not have laboratory experience. You have not conducted experiments in a wet or dry laboratory, depending on the field you're in. And so you coming out and saying, I've done this, and I've also helped raise the awareness about sickle cell anemia in my local community, and I would like to change the world by doing a PhD, you're going a little over the board, right? That's a little, in fact, somebody who also comes to me and says, look, I've worked with my local church. I have helped so many people get a better understanding about malaria. Or I've participated in this project. I've collected blood samples for patients who are coming at the clinic as my attachment. And I really want to get into the public health program at Harvard University. So that's also kind of an entitlement complex, right? You may not realize it, but you're claiming something that the people who typically get it are much, much, much more qualified than you are. I'm not saying you stand no chance. Don't get me wrong, right? But you have to understand your qualifications and your experiences and your skills and your techniques in the context of the competition that exists at any graduate program in the United States. And so if you attended our GIS 3, our Graduate Information Session 3, for instance, Professor Maralis Konachi-Soral here at UT Southwestern was saying that the graduate program here receives about 2,000 applications every year, and they offer sometimes less than 100 spots. Okay, so you can yourselves think about the competition there. So the goal is to show that you've done your best in your limited opportunities. Your goal is not to show that you're the best in the world, because you are not. Okay. So we want to make sure that you also have complete and current information about research laboratories and professors, and graduate applications. And I just told you that many graduate programs have waived the GRE, right? You may not have been aware of that before this meeting. But we've also seen cases where we tell a student, you know, I see you know this professor, but I encourage you to read more about their research and provide a few more examples as you write about their research in your statement, right? And then the student goes to the laboratory website, reads the research statement, and they put that in their CV. And first of all, you should never do that. You should never, ever copy the research statement from a professor's laboratory website. Keep in mind they've written that statement. And if you mention their name, the admission committee will mention your name to them. They may even send them your application. And so if you have copied verbatim their statement, that's plagiarism. Automatically, you will be rejected. I guarantee you that. Even if you choose to paraphrase that statement, you have to make sure that that statement is really up to date. Why am I saying this? Professors are very busy, and their laboratory websites are not, believe me or not, their main point of focus. They may look at their website once or twice or 3 times a year, or maybe once in a few years. And so the information you get on the website, especially laboratory websites, are not up to date in most cases. And so the best sources to visit are things like Google Scholar that are updated automatically and regularly, right? Databases like PubMed, if you're in biomedical sciences, those are also updated regularly. And the engineering field also has other publication databases that keeps track of the researchers' publications, entries like that, like ResearchGate, for example, will try and keep publications of a researcher up to date. Sources like Web of Science, right? I mentioned Google Scholar. It also covers people from our research fields. So don't limit yourself to the laboratory website, because those tend not to be up to date. And I'm telling you this, and I've been in 2 different laboratory already, and I know how often these people update their websites. If I had a lab myself, I probably would have much more important things, much more priorities than my lab website, right? So write that down, keep it in mind. But also we want to make sure that you understand the academic culture and organization. So when you tell a professor, I believe I would be a good fit in your laboratory, you actually know what that laboratory looks like, right? And so again, if you go back to the graduate information session webinars on YouTube and watch them, I believe there's one lecture, one webinar where we talk about the composition of a lab. But typically, you have the leader of the lab, who in the United States is typically called a principal investigator, or PI. In Europe, they call them group leaders sometimes. And that PI then has a few or one postdocs in the lab. So people like me who have PhDs but are still training in their labs. And then graduate students, masters or PhDs. And sometimes there are also undergraduate students who are getting research experience. And so that's another advantage that American students or Americans who are here would have, for example, compared to you, because they have all these labs and they can come in and gain research experience. But don't worry, typically international students are weighed differently from domestic students. So they don't expect you to have publications and unfortunately, there are some graduate programs that nowadays, if you don't have a publication, you almost never make it to the interview. They may take into account that you are coming from Africa and you've not had a lot of research experience. But all this depends on how you make your case. Again, your communication is everything here. And so this also means that the competition is harsher for you. And so you have to apply to multiple programs to increase your chances. And so I've already mentioned about communication, but and a little bit about professional etiquette, both during your interviews and during your written emails and documents. So we will be communicating with you mainly via Zoom or emails, sometimes WhatsApp. So we're going to send you a spreadsheet that you're going to fill out. And then when your mentor reaches out to you, you're going to email them that spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is also going to contain your phone number that you use on WhatsApp. The reason why we ask this is because if we can't get hold of you via email, then we may use WhatsApp to reach out to you. This is very important because sometimes emails can go to your spam or junk folders. So speaking of this, from the next few months, you should also have a regular practice of checking your spam and junk folders of your emails. The day you receive an email from your mentor, make sure you add them to your email contact list so their emails are not sent to your spam. This is very important because most of our mentors are going to be contacting you via their school emails. And so they're going to come, emails are going to come from, blah, 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 blah at utsouthwestern.edu, blah, 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 blah at harvard.edu, blah, blah, blah at yale.edu. And sometimes these domains that are not very common get immediately sent to spam folders. So you have to make sure that you're checking your spams. And if you get that email, please add your mentors to your email list. And they may also need to reach out to you via WhatsApp. I do not want to read an email that says, sorry, I have not been checking my emails recently. That is not an acceptable excuse. You should check your emails every day. And you should make an effort to respond at least within 48 hours, if you can. Your response does not necessarily have to address the issues that the mentors is asking you for. For example, if you have a family emergency that's going to keep you really busy for a week, and your mentor is asking for documents or some information, you can simply say, I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a family emergency. I will get back to you within 2 weeks or within a week. It will take you 30 seconds, literally, to type that email. But then the mentor is not left hanging, wondering whether you're there or not, whether you're actually real or not. Remember, we're giving them your name, but they've never met you. They don't know you. And so the sooner and the quicker you respond, and you respond enthusiastically, and of course, be grateful because these people are not paid to mentor you. They are volunteering. Take my word, they are very, very busy. Okay. And so if you see where I'm sitting right now, I'm actually, if you look in my background, I'm in my lab. And I'm here because after this meeting, I'm actually going to do some experiments in the lab. And what day is today? Sunday, right? Most people don't work on Sunday. Most people don't work on Sunday, but I have to, right? Because research is busy, right? You have to keep up with your experiments. You have to keep feeding your cells or monitoring your experiments in your lab, whatever you're doing. You have to keep monitoring your code or improving your code if you are in computational sciences. If you have to collect samples or from patients or from people in the public, you're in a public health field, you got to keep up, right? And so these mentors are super busy, and some of them are parents like myself. I have a family and two kids, right? And so um, the least you can do is to be respectful of their time, and respond on a timely, in a timely manner. That's very important. Regardless of whether or not you get an admission into graduate school, I can tell you that if you engage with this mentorship, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn things that are going to help you for the rest of your life. And this is true. We've seen people who have not gotten admitted before, but they're still grateful for the exercise. And so the mentor may set their communication style and expectations. So make sure you follow that. And so they may say, if you send me an email, I will respond within a week. Okay, again, that's because they are very busy. And that's what they can do. Some of the mentors are actually teachers, right? And so if they are grading exams, your email can wait a little bit because the deadline is not until November. The key thing is that you own the process, is that you have a plan that will allow you to submit your applications on time. The mentor is not going to do that for you, right? This is from the mentors. They may share screens with you to show you some examples, as I'm going to do today. And so if you have a laptop, use it if it's connected to internet, as opposed to your cell phone, if you are having a Zoom call and they want to share some documents. And so some of you are applying to grad school. You are also applying for travel awards. You're also applying for conferences or other proffers out there. Make sure that if you need help with those, you inform the mentor ahead of time. Okay, it's really tricky when you work with a student for 2 months and then they drop a list of 5 other things that they are applying for, and they also need your help with those. Speaking of many applications, some of the things that the mentors are going to show you will be transferable to multiple graduate programs. And so if I show you how to write an email to a professor who is at the University of Pennsylvania, I expect that you can use that guideline to then write a good email to a professor who is at Oxford. So you don't have to send 5 professor emails to your mentor. If they've worked with you on one email, that should serve as a good guideline for the other emails. If you need specific help on any specific document, of course, feel free to reach out, but also do your part, right? Do your homework. You don't want to give an impression to your mentors that they will need to guide you like a blind person. This is very important. It's bold and it's underlined. You must do the work. Afrisnet is not here to write your application for you. It's very important, okay? And those of you who've worked with me, you know this. Some have even gotten annoyed that I'm too demanding, but in the end, it all pays off. You have to work hard, you have to put in the work, and you have to be ready to include the edits that the mentor is asking you to do, right? It's really annoying when we tell a mentee that, I think this can be improved on your CV, and then you send them back the document with exactly the same comment and you've done nothing on it. That's very discouraging to the mentor. But they've also pointed that particular aspect out because they believe there is an issue with it. So in the end, you write your document. So you may not want to incorporate the mentor's feedback. That's up to you. That's absolutely your right. But if you choose to do so, then as a trained academic, you have that's a discussion, right? You have to provide your argument as to why you don't want to change that sentence. Okay? And in the end, it's your sentence. I'm not going to submit your documents for you. I don't know what you submit. I just tell you what I think is better or good or appropriate. And then you do what you want. But we're not going to write the documents for you. And that would not be a service to the labs that are going to host you as graduate students. So you have to keep that in mind, that as we are helping you here, we are also doing a great service to the research laboratories that you'll be PhD students in. And I wouldn't want a bad student in my lab. Likewise, I don't want to send a bad student to my colleague's lab because that's not a good service to research. It's not a good service to you because you're only going to suffer in that laboratory. And so a good way to show that you're prepared is to begin by putting in work in the application process itself. So it's going to take months. It's a good thing we're starting in July and the deadline is not until December. Okay. Another important thing, if you are unresponsive or if you are lazy, you're not responding to the emails, we're simply not going to chase you. And so people often say that Afrisnet does not babysit, right? You are all mature, you are all responsible, and you're going to do the work. We're really here to guide you. So what do we expect from you? We need regular and timely communication, right? We expect that you are going to understand and respect your mentor's time. This means that if a mentor is taking some time to respond to your emails, don't take it personal, but do remember to send reminders. That's very important. And so if you send an email and it's been 2 weeks, you've not heard anything back, it's important that you reach back out and say, hey, I just wanted to kindly check if you've received my email below, okay? And that's very important because busy people sometimes also forget. And again, if a mentor forgets your email, don't take it personal because again, maybe their kids are sick, right? Maybe your mentor is an expecting mother, right? And if they have a baby, it's going to take a while before they get back to your emails, right? Or they are writing a really, really big fellowship for their own future, right? So as we help you for your applications, we're also writing our own for other things that we need for our career growth and development. So reminding us is important for you, but it's also a way to kind of help us help you. So you can nicely and kindly nudge people. This is not just for the Afrisnet mentors, for anybody that you reach out to, right? Now, I've also received messages of people, if you write to a professor and they don't respond to your email in 3 days, don't start nudging them because they're very busy, right? Again, give people some time, right? I would say if it goes for 2 weeks and you've not heard from somebody, then maybe it's time to check in. It all depends on how close the deadline is, right? If we are on November, November 5 and the deadline is November 30th, you send an email, you don't have an answer within a week, then absolutely reach out, right? I've also gotten students who will reach out to me and say, I would like to apply for this particular program. The deadline is in October, but I would like to be done by August 1st. Perfect. I like your motivation. I really like that you're trying to work hard and get things ready ahead of time. But why? Why are you taking away 2 months that you could use to improve your application? Number one. Number two, I may not have time to work as fast as you want, right? And so give realistic information and true information to your mentors, and send them regular reminders if you need to. but own your applications, right? So it's very important. Your mentors are only there to be your companions, to guide you, to use their experience and wisdom and knowledge to make sure that, again, you communicate appropriately and advocate for yourself, but they're not there to write your applications. You need to work hard. I can't really emphasize this enough. And be proactive and organized. If you want to complete all your applications on time, you need to be proactive. You need to work hard. You need to be organized. So you also may be wondering, how many applications should I submit? We typically say 4 to 8 is a good number. Some people submit up to 10. The more you submit, the better. And again, you can negotiate fee waivers, because if every application is $50 and you submit 10 of them, that's $500. Some of you may not have that money. Okay. So Abdul Bak just posted something. They are telling me that any application will be canceled if I don't pay processing fees. So Abdul, if you get a mentor, again, they will be able to help you through this process. But keep in mind that when you collect information about graduate programs, you need to have the information of the contact person, not the information of the professors that you're interested in. If the professor you're interested in has responded to your emails, you can also ask them for the graduate coordinator or the graduate advisor. Those are the people that you want to reach out to and ask about these application fee waivers. Again, I encourage you to watch one of the recordings in the GIS. I believe it's 1 or 2. I don't remember exactly which one, but I've given specific examples of how you get contacts from a graduate program website and who you contact for specific matters. So if you don't have that information, of course, you don't know who to contact, right?
Usually was.
And so if you don't know who you should address this information to, again, your mentors can help. I'm also going to give you the Afrisnet contact information in the end. These are questions that we can answer easily via emails. Just again, keep in mind that we're receiving so many emails these days, and it may take a little while to answer your email. In your specific case, I guess, if you don't have like a debit card, and you can pay this fee online, I don't know how else you can do it, and that would depend on the graduate program specifically. So you need to find the contact information of the graduate coordinator and ask these specific questions. Most importantly, if you don't have the money, you need to tell them and ask if there is any chance that the fees can be waived. Hope that helps. If you do get admission, we also try to keep in touch, make sure that you negotiate with the offers that you're getting. So you get an offer letter that tells you what the graduate program is going to do for you, maybe a fellowship. They may tell you, we're going to fund you for only 3 years. And so immediately you want to get back and say, a PhD takes up to 5 years sometimes. What happens if I don't have funding? Or how can I get that funding? Is there any funding available? So you have some negotiation power, and the mentors would help you negotiate. So basically, if anything doesn't feel right, reach out, right? That's what these mentors are there for. You may have questions about visa, and so keep in mind that the mentors are not immigration officers, so they will not have all the detailed information about the visas, but when the time comes, you may get a reminder to start the process as soon as possible. If you are going to a city, if you've never lived in Boston and you have an admission to Harvard, You can reach out to your mentor and ask them about what they think about the cost of living in Boston, or how do you get an apartment, right? I've gotten some emails from students that Afrisnet has not even mentored, and they're just asking about, how to get housing in the United States, and that kind of question. So um, in some cases, we've connected our mentees with local friends who can be very helpful in explaining to you what it is like to live in a place. Many of you might be applying to graduate programs where Afrisnet has students already, and we can pair you with those students and they can help you once you're admitted. Okay. So the timeline now, from May to June, the mentorship application was open. I think we gave a little bit of leeway. Some of you applied even in July. We still took your applications. And then we've had, as I mentioned, the orientation for the mentors already. This is the orientation for the mentees. And then in August, we're going to assign you with your mentors and get the mentorship process kicked off. That should give you about 4 to 7 months of preparing your applications, depending on the deadlines. And then early next year, we're going to reach out and ask about the outcomes of your applications. I would say keep us posted either way. At this point, I should also mention that once you do matriculate, once you start grad school, you also get inducted into the Afrisnet graduate community. And so we continue to give you mentorship even through graduate school to help you integrate in the wider scientific community, but help you navigate your career options. And so what happens after your PhD? Do you do a postdoc? Do you go teach? Where can you go? But you also stay in the same network with other Africans who are PhD students here in the United States and anywhere else in the world. And so put some of these resources in the chat. You should spend some time on these two websites, particularly. I really like them. If you've submitted a registration on the Afrisnet website, once we approve your application, you're going to be able to also have access to the Afrisnet resources page, which includes also a lot of guidelines about how to write application documents, recommendation letters, statements of purpose, graduate school in different countries, and then also links to these other resources and other resources that we've used to put together this page. And so you may be asking yourself, why is it taking so long to approve my application? It's just one button to push. But the reason is because we want to review your information, but we also have people who are who are registering all the time. And if they need our help, we need to be able to make sure that it's you or someone else that we don't have on our list yet, just to make sure that we don't lose anybody. So it does take some time. Use YouTube. There is a lot of videos there. You can put in your headphones as you're walking on the streets, as you're working in the lab or doing something else, as you're cooking at home. Listen to the videos, listen about how people apply to grad school. There's nothing you're going to do. There's nothing you're going to do in this application process that someone else has not done before you. Okay. And so I'm going to share this recording, and so you're going to have access to all this information. Again, Prince. He's asking if the PowerPoint is going to be available in the chat. So you have the recording, so you have access to all this information again. And there may be other sources that I'm not aware of. I don't know if we will have the capacity to monitor it. If you would like to volunteer to help with that, I'm happy with also starting a WhatsApp group for all of us. so we can share the resources that some people have that others do not have. Okay. And so if some of you would be willing to maybe help moderate that WhatsApp page or that Slack page, drop your names in the chat. Samuel can write your names down. And Samuel is still here.
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Great. And then we can reach out to you later on to start that WhatsApp page so we can all share information. This is also an opportunity for you to connect with other fellow Africans, right? So you're on this Zoom and you're all in different countries. It's good to start developing that ability to network and connect with people in other countries as well. You are all Africans and you're all facing the same challenges and you're all trying to get the same thing. So this is not a place to compete. It's a place to connect and network and help each other as well. You are all at different levels. I can guarantee you that. I've read your applications. Okay, so I'm gonna now kind of delve into the documents and provide some examples. And it's been almost 2 hours, so why don't we take a break? Let's take 5 minutes, and grab some water, drink some water, use the restroom, take a breather, whatever you need. And when we get back, we're gonna delve into the documents. I want to talk about the emails that you sent to the potential advisors. I want to talk about the CV. Eventually, I want to talk about the statement of purpose before I take your questions. I want to, because these are very important and these sometimes make the whole difference in your application. So I'll grab a cup of coffee myself. So I'm going to step off the Zoom. And I'm gonna turn off my video when I step away. So I'm not leaving the meeting. I promise I'll be back. In 5 minutes, please be back. So we'll pick it up from there. So right now I'm going to mute myself and shut off my video. And I will see you all in, 1 minute to the next hour, wherever you are. Whatever the local time is where you are. Okay, so this is great. I see some interest in helping.
Yeah, so Gabriel, I think one good idea that some people have already suggested is that we could agree and then create the group, like the WhatsApp group,
I see.
and then we can share like the link here so
Mm-hmm.
that everyone can join. And I think like that will be easier.
Sure. Can anybody do that? Would anybody create the group now and then share the link here in the chat? I will save the link and then I will also email it to everyone. That way, even the people who are not on the call can have access to it.
I can create a group if that'll be okay.
Okay, Angelina is going to do it.
All right, for sure,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, thank you, Samuel. I think it's good if it really comes from the students, right? It makes a big difference. Okay, I actually also realized that when I mentioned 1 minute to the next hour, I was looking at a clock that is really off. That means I misled some people, so some people may be away. Alonge Olumide. I hope I'm not butchering your name. I probably am. I apologize. How do you say your name?
Alonge.
Alonge, thank you.
Yeah.
So Alonge is asking in the chat, can I apply for 2 different but related programs in the same university? I think it's okay. I think it's fine. You can do this. So the subdivisions of the programs oftentimes does not necessarily mean like a scientific complete separation of the research interests going on in the programs, right? The reason why I say this is that even in some programs, you can apply to one program, but once you get admitted, they actually allow you to rotate in other programs, right? So I don't know if that's the case for you, Samuel, at USC, but for me, I was admitted in one program, but they would let me rotate in actually 5 other programs. And I could join any lab in those other 5 programs, even though I was officially a student in that one program that I applied to. So what that means is that they recognize that your research interests might be more met in a different program, even if you are a student in their graduate program, right? Okay, so I'm gonna copy the link. Thank you so much, Angelina. And I'm thinking about, or we're thinking about getting a dedicated WhatsApp number for Afrisnet. So I may not join this WhatsApp page right away, but we want to have a centralized number. So if I'm not available, then someone else can also help answer your questions as well. So let me make sure that I note this link so I don't lose it. and then I'll get going with the application. Okay, I'm gonna now get into your application documents, which it's always fun to talk about. So let me move this Zoom to the side. Perfect. Okay, so you're all hopefully already getting the sense of ownership that I was telling you about. This WhatsApp page is one good example, right? And so you can also have these conversations because you are all again in this process together. You share the same challenges and opportunities in Africa, and having this WhatsApp page where you can all communicate is already a very big, hopefully, advantage to many of you. And you are all in very different countries. I don't know how many, but if we want, also people can type the questions that they are joining in from their you can type the countries where you're joining from in the chat if you want. So Yacent, no worries. The meeting is being recorded, so you get the recording. Don't worry. Is it okay if I apply to a master's and a doctorate program or the same program at the same university? Godwin, remind me this question in the end. I think this can be a little bit tricky again. I wouldn't recommend to apply for a master's and a doctorate at the same time in the same program, because then they are going to wonder why you're applying to the master's. They're gonna probably think that you believe you're not qualified for the PhD, and if you are qualified or you're not ready for the PhD or you're not qualified for it, and so they may default you to the master's when maybe you could be qualified for the doctorate. That's my opinion, right? And so I think whether you got my time right or wrong, apologies again, I think I gave people the wrong, I was looking at the wrong clock when I gave the time, but we're back into the meeting now. I hope you all had a quick break. Again, Angelina, I cannot start to pronounce your last name because I'm going to butcher it. Akomea. Great, that was close. Has shared a link in the chat for a WhatsApp page for all of us to be together. So Angelina, I hope people have already started to join. So get to know each other, introduce yourselves to each other. That's really the most important thing. It's not me being on the page telling you what to do and what not to do, right? Angelina, if you can paste that link in the chat a few times as we go so people can see it, that would be fantastic. I think as people type more questions, the link is gonna get buried into the chat. Great. So CV, curriculum vitae. This is an important document. I think a lot of graduate programs will ask for it, or at least your resume. I've written some general guidelines here because I'm not trying to impose a specific style for your CV. So I'm not going to tell you write it this way or that way. you can choose a style that works for you. Instead, I've written down some guidelines that I think would be good to um, kind of follow to make it easy. So keep your CVs simple and consistent, right? Some people like stylish documents with a lot of icons, and I've seen many CVs from students that look like that. I'm not saying that's wrong, and but keep in mind that everything you put on your document catches the eye of the reader. So you have to ask yourself, where do you want to direct the eye of your reader, right? So if you keep it simple, they will only see the important information that they need to do. Okay. So Angelina, Prince makes a very good point. So this is a professional exercise for you. You're on this page because you're in this meeting or you've applied to the Afrisnet mentorship program. So if someone else wants to get into the group, please share them the link that you use to apply for the mentorship. That's the starting point, right? So if we get thousands and thousands of people on the WhatsApp page who don't know what they're doing, it's not going to be helpful. It's only going to be a mess, right? So I know you may have friends who are also dying to get mentorship, but you know how to do it, right? They can register through the Afrisnet website. We have also not closed the application page that you've applied through. It's going to remain open throughout the year, but we're going to monitor the time when you apply. So if you apply today, it's already past that time. If we don't have mentors, we may not consider you, right? But consider this your closed group for now of fellows that you're working with, your colleagues, and there should be a structure for how people get into the group, and I just mentioned that, okay? So we can keep some sanity as Prince suggested. Thank you, Prince. It's a good comment. All right, so you don't have to include your date of birth on your CV. A lot of people do this. Typically, personal information is not important. You can include your WhatsApp number or your phone number nowadays. That WhatsApp is becoming very common. Like if on your interview day, if they can't reach you, they may use your shoot you a message on WhatsApp. I don't know if any graduate programs do that. They may do it. And then your email, your name is typically enough. You can put your address, that's also fine. And in general organization, I'm not really gonna tell you follow this list, specifically, but I always recommend students to begin with your education background, meaning your degree, right? Include your GPA on your CV for grad school. One thing that you all should learn for now is that your CV or resume should get tailored to what you are applying for. A CV that you write for a job application is not the same CV that you write for your graduate school application. They may look different depending on what you are applying for, okay? I see. So Gideon is suggesting that we add so maybe we can add the WhatsApp group to the Google form. That's easy. That's a good suggestion. But please, as you go on, introduce yourselves to each other, keep the group active. And again, I'm also gonna join later once I have that WhatsApp number for Afrisnet. Yeah, begin with your education and background, and typically follow up with your research experience, because those are the two things that are going to get you in grad school. If you don't have an undergraduate degree, or you're not going to have another graduate degree before the start of grad school, you're not going to get an admission. If you have research experience, it helps you get admission into grad school. So put those two sections on the top, because that's what they are looking for, right? If you have a master's, they want to see it. right there, put your thesis topic, right? Your title, right? In your research, explain what was your research topic. Don't just list, undergraduate research experience, undergraduate thesis, and stop there. No. What was your research topic? What was the lab and the supervisor, right? What research questions did you answer? What methods did you use? Very briefly, right? You can mention each one of these things in 1 or 2 lines. So your CV is not going to be extensively long anyways, right? And so I just want to tell everybody that Angelina is going to continue to share the WhatsApp link as we go through. So just be patient and keep monitoring the chat. And I'm also going to email the link when I send everyone the recording for this meeting. And so also the last point is very, very, very important. You're admitted to as a graduate student because you know how to do research, and you show. That verb is so important. Show, SHOW. Keep that in mind. I can't really overemphasize that. You have to show your experiences, your skills, your techniques, and you show that by saying exactly what you did very specifically. You can get technical and detailed here. It's okay. Don't be verbatim or go over the board with writing, another essay in your CV, but, list what you've done, and also use action verbs. If you don't know what action verbs are, just go to Google and write example of action verbs. You'll get a list. There is a good one from a resources at Harvard. And I believe it might also be on the Afrisnet resources page. You might be able to find it there. Somebody is saying that my shared screen is blank. Is it the same for everyone?
No,
No, it
please.
isn't.
Okay, so Miriam, I don't know what's going on. But just so we make sure, Miriam, were you seeing my screen before?
Yes, please. I was seeing it before.
So that's most likely your connection. So what you can do is drop out of the call and join back in, and Samuel will let you in right away. And let me know if that doesn't solve the problem, then I can stop the sharing and restart it again, okay? Perfect. So yeah, make sure you show your specific role in any research projects that you've worked in. Your education, your research experience are the two most important sections of your CV that you're submitting to the graduate programs. This is more important, even if you've been the leader of a global nonprofit organization. That's impressive, but that's not research, right? If you are, I don't know, a local leader in your home country, a senator, who knows? It doesn't matter, right? Your education, your research experience are what gets you into graduate school. And so these sections should be clear. You should pay attention to them. You should write them carefully and make sure that you give them enough time and enough space. And some of you have publications. Make sure that you provide direct access. And so if somebody reads your CV and they see that you have a publication, you can provide links, you can provide DOI numbers, you can provide PubMed ID numbers, you can provide your Google Scholar page if you have one that lists all your publications. Okay, great, Miriam. I'm glad you can see the screen now. But if you list your publications, you don't want the people reading your applications. If you list your publications, you don't want people reading your applications to, dig for your publications. They should be readily accessible. And if you are contacting professors now, emailing to them, it's even better to actually attach the PDFs of your publications to the email so they can access the whole publication directly without even opening other links. Okay. So now that's the CV. Like I said, I will provide only general guidelines. This is a document you're going to share with your mentors. The number of pages doesn't matter, Emanuela. What matters is that you include the necessary information, right? And know what to focus on, right? Your extracurricular things like volunteering are good. Community engagement, those are great. They show that you can manage your time, you're engaged, you can work hard. But your research experience and your education are, again, the most important things for grad school application, right? The length, that doesn't really matter, right? But write things in a reasonable manner as well, because people reading your applications are very busy. So mentors are going to read your CVs. They may have preferred styles. They may give you a different advice. That's all the great thing, and the diversity that we have in Afrisnet, I think, is amazing. So work with your mentors. If they give you different advice, they may give you better advice that I'm giving you now. But it should all be helpful to you. So email to potential advisors. Some of you have been doing this. Some of you have applied before. You've reached out to many people. Some have responded. Others have not. And so, yeah, I can tell you that if your email does not catch the interest of a professor, they're not going to respond to you. They are very busy, right? And so, Righteous, if you have a link, put a link. It's better than an ID number, because an ID number means I have to access the website and put in that ID number, right? A link is better. And if you have a PDF, you're writing an email, attach the PDF. The idea is you want to make the access to your publications as readily as possible. So when you write this email to your advisor, introduce yourself briefly, provide your name, academic degree, current position or occupation, institution, and country, right? So Anthony Itao, I'm from Kenya. I'll be graduating with my master's degree in May next year, and I'm currently at Kenyatta University, right? That's an example. And state the reason why you're writing in the very first few sentences. That's what makes people read your emails and respond to them, right? I'm reaching out to you to let you know that I have a strong interest in your research. Then I'm going to be like, okay, wow, okay, who is this? Who has interest in my research, right? And I'm also planning to apply to your graduate program, right? Make sure you name the graduate program and the university, right? To show them that you know what you're talking about. And then right at the offset, communicate the qualifications. Again, this is what they're looking for. Great, you want to come to my lab. Who are you? What do you know? Have you done research before? Or if you've not done research, what else have you done that makes you qualified, right? And so here I gave an example. I've taken some major undergraduate courses in engineering, and I have more than 10 months of research experience in an industrial engineering research lab. Okay, so you're an undergrad, you've taken major courses, but you have research experience. Now I'm interested in reading your email, right? The remaining question in my mind, regardless of all the things you write, is what research experience do you have? I say 10 months as an example here. I only had about 2 months of research experience when I applied to graduate school. So you don't need to have 10 months. You don't need to have years. You may have a few weeks, you may have months. Just say what you have, right? And then as you end the intro, hook the reader, right? Tell them what the email is going to be about. I just told you I have the experience, right? And my research experience has convinced me that I would offer a significant contribution to the research in your laboratory. This is bold, right? So somebody is coming and saying, I'm going to actually contribute to your research lab. I want to read, right? I'm interested. And I also hope that you will consider me as a graduate student in your labs. I'm telling you again why I'm sending you this email, because I want to be a student in your lab if you will be taking new students in the upcoming academic year, right? So this, it's only, how many sentences do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences in my intro, right? But I've shown this professor that I've told them why I'm writing to them. I've told them I have research experience. Maybe you add one more sentence for your introduction. So sure, 5, right? But you've told them where you are, your degree, you have research experience, you're claiming you can contribute to their research, right? You've mentioned your research interest. They know their research interest. You can delve into that into the main body. At this point, you don't have to say, your research on XYZ is very appealing to me. Fine, that's a great sentence to add. You can if you want to, but even if you don't add it, they want to hear about you. That's what's most important. And you know their graduate program, you know the university they are at. If you're sending multiple emails, make sure that you work on your intro for every professor. If you copy and paste the same email to multiple professors, they are going to sense it. A generic email is obvious very easily. And once a professor feels like you're sending them the same email that you're sending to many other people, you're not going to respond to your email. Okay. And so this could be very generic things like, I'm an undergraduate in Kenya. I'm planning to apply to UT Southwestern next year for graduate school. And I wanted to know if you'll be taking students next year. And then you blah, 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 right? So maybe it's good to also add a sentence that talks about what they work on in that regard. That might help, but avoid copy paste emails. They're not going to help you. And then you get into the main body. You've said you're an undergraduate student, but where are you in your undergrad, right? What courses have you taken, right? Focus on practical experiences, capstone projects, course-related extracurricular activities, right? They know that everybody can go in a class and sit in lectures and do homeworks. They know that. Everybody can do that. Right? But what have you done that makes you unique? What have you done that has really, really sparked your research interest? Keep in mind the goal here is research, right? When is the perfect time to write to an advisor? Magnifique asks. Don't write 2 years before you start grad school, but don't also write to them 1 week before the deadline, because they will not have time to respond to you. So if you're planning to apply in the fall, for example, this is a great time. So I would say a few months before the deadline. If it's too early, you're not going to prioritize it, because they'll say, you know, there's so much time before the deadline, right? And so explain how these courses have inspired your research interest, right? And so I'm gonna use 2 verbs a lot in your email and CV: explain and show. You're not telling here. This is not time to list your experiences. It's time to demonstrate. It's time to explain. It's time to show. And so after taking upper level courses in cell biology, my curiosity into how the cell is organized and functions grew even deeper, and I decided to engage in a research project in a cell biology laboratory to learn more, right? So I've taken some upper level courses that made me more curious about the cell, and I wanted to learn more, right? That's a natural process. That's a natural progress. I'm not impressed yet, but I'm glad that you were inspired and you took action, right? In your main body now, you really take time to describe your research experience, right? If this takes 50% of your email, it's worth it, okay? What was the research topic? Who supervised you, right? What research questions? What was your hypothesis? What were the methods used? Again, what did you do on the research projects? Did you run Did you run gel? Did you run gel electrophoresis? Did you do polymerase chain reactions? Did you go out in the road and surveyed the roads or whatever? Did you build, I don't know, electric circuits? Did you design mobile apps? You know, what did you do? What softwares did you use? What coding languages did you use? What did you develop, right? What were the results of your research project? And most importantly, what impact did that project have on your general research interest and decision to pursue graduate school, right? Again, if you have publications, provide direct access through links, preferably, or other means, okay? After you've talked about your research, you can say that now you come back and say, look, I've told you what I worked on, and I believe what I've worked on research-wise aligns with your research interests. For example, your lab is working on this research area that I think is similar or related to what I've done in the past, right? Here you need to provide the general direction of the research, right? Some students want to get into the weeds and say everything that the professors work on. They know that better than you. This is not a time for you to lecture them about their own research. Provide a general direction, but then pick specific areas that can show that you've read their research. Give the example of a paper, right? Well, there are some methods that were used in their paper that you thought were very innovative and that you feel like you would love to learn how to use in your own research, right? Is there a specific questions that they answered that was outstanding in your research area of interest, right? And you can commend them on that accomplishment and say that you would like to be part of the subsequent work that will continue to explore that research topic, right? I just mentioned this. So what do you think is the general impact of their research? It's not just that you're interested. You should also join a lab that you know is doing research that is impactful, that matters to you and is important, right? And so I believe that the research in your laboratory is set to unravel novel mechanisms of cancer metastasis in the lung, and I would be honored to contribute, okay? Notice my language here. I would be honored. It would be an honor for me. What if I said, and I'm ready to contribute? Or I said, and I would be an excellent candidate to help push this research forward. You notice the difference in those three languages, right? This one here, I'm saying it would be a huge opportunity for me to be in your lab. I really respect your work. I think it's very important. The second line is I'm ready. It means I don't have anything to learn to participate in your research. Well, that's not true. You will be joining a new lab. You're not ready. There are many things you need to learn before you can start participating. The third one is I'm excellent. Are you really? Right? So when you claim excellence, be careful, right? Your language can turn people off. Very simple verbs, very simple words can turn people off. And then in your conclusion, you want to thank the advisor for the time, for consideration, and request further discussion of your interest and the projects that are available or will be available in the lab. And so you can request a Zoom meeting, for example, for further discussions. Okay. Now, statement of purpose or personal statement. Again, I believe there is a lot of overlap, except the personal statement would appeal more on your personal history to then justify how you got into your current position and how that history has shaped your future interest. In my case, in my opinion, that's how these two differ. The other major difference is that a personal statement does not necessarily have to point to future activities. And so the statements you're going to be writing as potential graduate students, either personal or statement or research, however they are called, they're going to be pointing to the future. They're going to be pointing to what you would like to achieve and do as graduate students based on your interest in your past experiences. Whereas I can now write a personal statement on climate change. Me as Gabriel, humble and meaningless person from Rwanda, I can tell the world what I think about climate change as a person, appealing from my personal experiences. I may not mention anything I'm going to do in the future, but I can write my personal statement. So that's a major difference. But in your case, whether personal or purpose statement, they are going to be future oriented. And so, what you are trying to do in these documents, regardless of how they are called, you're convincing a team of professors, the so-called admission committees, that you are a good fit and you are qualified for their program. Once you've achieved this, most likely you will get an interview. And so these people, the admission committees, they are super, super busy professors. They have their own students in the lab. They are teaching courses. They have graduate students. They have postdocs. All these people are sending them their publications to read. They're sending them other applications to read. They are parents. They have families. They're very busy. And they have thousands of applications to review. So you're not going to have an hour to read your CV. No, you're not going to have an hour to read your statement. If you get a lot of time, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Most likely less. And so if your intro paragraph does not really capture them, you've lost a big deal. You have to hook them in the beginning. And when we say hooking, some people think it's a complicated writing art of some kind. It's not. You hook people by being unique, by being you. Talk about you. I'm going to provide some examples in a minute, but I don't need you to come and tell me that cancer kills people in Kenya. Everybody in the world knows that cancer kills people all over the world, right? I don't need you to come and tell me that, you know, there is climate change and that it's having an impact on the environment and on food security. Don't tell me what I know, right? Tell me what's unique, right? I was in a classroom. I was using a microscope. I was sitting in a lecture. You know, I was working in my neighborhood. I was speaking with my father. I was listening to a story on a podcast, right? You can provide your referees information, Amanda, if you have them, that's fine. Most likely they're not going to reach out to them. But there have been cases where if they really need a quick answer, they may reach out to them. But typically, when you apply, the system has a way for you to put in that information. And once you type in that email, their email address, your referees will get an email to submit a recommendation for you. That's generally how it works. And so, yeah, be unique in this intro paragraph. And it's not rocket science. It's being unique means being you, true and realistic, right? Talk about human experiences, not global trends. They know those more than you do. Avoid generic and hyperboles. I can't really emphasize this enough, right? And so you don't want to say that you're interested in pursuing a degree in PhD engineering because growing as a child, you've noticed that Africa lacks basic infrastructure. First of all, this is not unique because every child in Africa is playing soccer on a dirt road, like I did when I was a child. This is not unique to you. Number two, these professors are well-educated, well-traveled, well-informed people. They know that the roads in the US might be better than the roads in Africa, in some parts of Africa, right? But they also know that there are great roads in Africa. So how is this unique? How is this interesting, right? It's very generic. Lack of infrastructure, what does that mean? Lack of roads, lack of airports, lack of railroads. A hyperbole example could be, my goal is to become a world-renowned researcher and start a research institute in my home country to fight climate change. I kid you not, this example comes directly. It wasn't about climate change, and I've changed it a little bit. So even if the person who wrote it was on the call, they probably won't know I'm talking about them. But somebody did write a statement along these lines. And there were a few keywords in this sentence that were in that statement, right? You're not even a PhD student yet, and you want to be world renowned. You're speaking to somebody who is leading one research laboratory at a university, and you want them to help you start a research institute in your home country before you even have a master's. Okay? Are these things making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So don't use grandiose languages. Be you, right? Be you. My goal is to become a competent researcher in my research fields, right? I grew up with a relative who had tuberculosis, and I took them to the hospital multiple times, and I really got to see their suffering and became curious about the disease. Now I want to learn more about how this bacterium causes the disease. That's unique. Sure, it's a cliche. Everyone nowadays starts their statement saying that their grandmother or their grandfather died from cancer. So if you can avoid those general things that everyone can say, you can also avoid them. But they're still better than a grandiose and generic language that's not unique in any way. Okay, I'm gonna push through to the end, so I'm gonna come back to the questions when I'm done. So I'm not ignoring your questions in the chat if you're typing some now. But I really want to take my time and go through these examples because we see them a lot, and if you can avoid them, it will help you. I have capitalized the word show. I should have probably also made it bold. You have to show your experiences and skills to illustrate your achievements and interests. You're not just listing them, you are showing them. You can tell them, I have experience in this research technique because I have used it for 5 months when I was a research intern at this institute in Kenya. That's specific. That's a concrete example. You've taught me that you've used this technique for 5 months. So that's quantified, right? Not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, 5 months. You are using the same technique. So you know what you're talking about, right? You're showing by naming the institutions, the places, by providing the time information. You could also say, I was excited when I used this technique. Appeal to your senses, right? You're speaking to humans. And as you appeal to your own senses, you also appeal to theirs. How did you feel? Be realistic. Were you super excited the first day you stepped feet in a research lab? Or the first day you were given a specimen to dissect? Or the first time you were given a machine to survey a road? Or the first time you were introduced to Python and built a command that told your computer to do something and it did it, right? It's really about being you. It's not showing that you can move the whole world. No, that's not the point, right? Specific, concrete, quantified example. How many, how much, how long, where, when, how? And how hard did you have to work to get that research internship? How many people in your country actually get it? What's the context in which you got that experience? And of course, adhere to the formatting guidelines. If you're asked to write a statement of 2 pages and you write 5 pages, people are not going to be happy, right? But if you also write only half a page when you have 3 pages, that's also not going to look good. And so I'm going to now stop sharing this page and actually, well, let me see if I can pull. Okay. Can you all now see my web page, or are you still seeing the PowerPoint? Somebody tell me, web page or PowerPoint? I'm sharing a web page. Okay, so you're seeing my screen. Perfect. So let's use this example. This came from, first of all, when I'm still here, this is the Purdue Online Writing Lab that I told you about. And this is their homepage. And so if you go here, and then so this is the homepage. And if you go to this online writing lab, go to general writing, and then graduate school applications. Notice that they have more resources that might help you beyond grad school, even punctuation and grammar. But let's go to grad school. And in this section, you have so much information: overview, research programs, statement of purpose, requesting recommendation letters. So if you don't know how to do this, if you've never read a document on how to request a recommendation letter, you might be making a mistake. And so make sure you visit this page, right? They tell you how to research programs. They tell you how to write a statement of purpose or a research statement, okay? So spend some time reading these pages. They will help you, believe me. And I'm speaking from experience. This is the MIT Communication Lab. Some of you have contacted me and asked for templates. This MIT Communication Lab has templates here. They have personal statements, but when you read these statements, they could very well fit the role of a statement of purpose as well. And I picked one example to go through with you, okay? I mean, look at how this student, and I think this is example number 2. So this student has been admitted at MIT, okay? This might be electrical and computer science program. I'm not sure what EECS stands for, but that doesn't matter. Look at how this student starts their statement, right? My research interest lies in quantum information science and technologies, especially quantum information processing. How many students in the world would start their statements like this? I mean, a student is not saying that they want to change the world. It's something very simple, simply unique. They did nothing but state their interest. But also notice something here. Right in the first sentence, they put it in their face, right on the first sentence. These are my research interests. My question is then, why are you interested in this research, right? So briefly introduce your research interest and your background, right? It's color-coded. So purple is the background. You say, these are my interests, and right away says, I'm building on a strong background from my undergraduate research in this field. Okay, again, this is not really rocket science. It's just saying, I'm interested in this research topic, and this interest stems from my research experience as an undergraduate at this institution, right? And then state exactly what you want in that introduction paragraph. I'm applying for a master's program, or I'm applying for a master's in this program at this university. Okay, it's three actually. Okay, a 2-sentence introduction, but it's worth being highlighted on an MIT website, right? So writing much does not necessarily mean writing better. Okay. Now, this statement also does something nice. They add this sort of topic phrases to announce what every paragraph is about. See that? And this person did not do much, just talked about their research experience, research in photonics, research in quantum information. It's quantified. 2 years, 2 years, not just I did the research, not 2 years, very, very specific. It's a very long time. You may have only 2 months. You may only have 2 weeks. That's okay. Say it, right? This is very detailed. It's 2 years of experience in modeling nanoscale light matter interactions led me to naturally to booming field of quantum information. This person is explaining how their research interests grew, right? This interest grew from their 2 years of research experience in another scale, light matter interactions. You're not just saying, I'm interested in quantum information processing. No, that was the introduction. Now I'll tell you, I'll explain to you why, where this actually comes from, right? This is an excellent statement, in my opinion, right? And look at the excitement that I told you about. I was fascinated. I mean, I feel already like I'm talking to this student. Like I feel like they are in a room with me and I'm only reading their document, right? I was fascinated by the potentials of a powerful quantum computer. That's the future. It's not here yet, right? And so I can go on and so on. I can pick this first experiment. My research interest began with studying light at nanoscale. In the summer time of my first year, I started a research interest assistant Professor X, you name the person, the advisor, at the University of Toronto's XXX group place. You appeal to your feelings. I'm fascinated. I was excited. You name people, you name places, you name the time. That's what makes your story unique. Again, there's no magic. This is information you already have. You just have to say it, okay? I'm realizing that we will most likely go a little bit over time, but I feel like this is very important. So I hope you're all willing to sit down and so we can finish the slides that I have. During my second year, After half a year in the group, they're quantifying the time, right? I presented modeling optimization work as a researcher poster at the 8th symposium. Again, they've presented at a conference, a symposium. I co-authored a device patent. If you've co-authored 3 manuscripts, write it. Don't just say, this project resulted in a publication in a peer-reviewed journal. Which journal? How can I access it? How many manuscripts have you co-authored? What was your role in that manuscript writing? In that project, right? Did you collect data? Of course, this is a very well flourishing student, right? They have years of research experience. They've co-authored, they have patents. You don't need to have that. No, maybe all you've done is go at Camry in your attachment and plated bacteria and did gram staining and ran PCRs and extracted RNAs. Maybe that's all you did. That's fine. Quantify it. How many species of bacteria did you work with, right? How many experiments were you part of? How many labs did you rotate in? Who was supervising you? When did you do that? Who else did that? How competitive is that program, right? In the introduction, the student says now what their goal is. I'm determined to pursue research. This is the future. It's my determination. I'm not there yet. That's not what I'm doing, but that's what I would like to do, right? And thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. Beautiful. This is only 1.5 pages, right? No rocket science. If you want to read it entirely, I've shared the links in the chat. And again, once you get the recording, you'll be able to see it on the slides. It's the MIT Communications Lab. I believe you want to go there. I don't know exactly the navigation, but anyway, I shared this link directly, but it's good that you have access to the whole lab. But you can also search this site. So if you want to read, personal statement, just search for it, and you'll get, you want the graduate school statements of purpose. And this takes you exactly to that same page that I was at. Notice that I only pointed to the examples, but they actually have a very detailed page on how you write and how you document your skills. When we say quantify, they tell you how to do that, right? They give you how to give concrete examples versus vague examples, like what I told you. Okay. Again, this is just one resource. I've also given you the Purdue OWL and then the Afrisnet resources page, which you will be approved to access pretty soon. All right. Let's go back here. Now you should be seeing my slides. Are we together? I need some thumbs up.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. People on the east coast of Africa, I hope you're not falling asleep. I know it's a little bit late for you there. It's tricky to find time that accommodates everyone, but I hope you're keeping up. People in Kenya and Ethiopia. Okay. Keep going. In your, now I'm gonna kind of break it down, right? So in your introduction, okay, glad you're awake, Winnie. and Theodora. State briefly who you are. I like to say this because if you're writing to professors in Europe or the US, they may not know which institute. If you say I'm an undergraduate student at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, they may not have an idea where that is or what that is, right? So it's good to say, you know, briefly, who are you? Where are you coming from, right? Which country, right? And I've given you an example here. So my name is Daphna Akwa, and I'm a senior undergraduate student at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. Do not say I'm an undergraduate student at KNUST. They won't know what KNUST stands for. This is true. I've also seen students use abbreviations a lot. And so you say, I've done PCR multiple times. What's PCR? If somebody reviewing your application does research in population evolution, they may have never done a PCR. They may not know what a PCR is. So anytime you use an abbreviation in any of your documents, CV, statements, anytime you use an abbreviation for the first time, explain it. Do not feel like it's so common that everybody knows it. Explain it anyways. If it's well known and you explain it, there's nothing wrong with it. If you assume it's well known and somebody reads it, they don't know what it is, they're now less interested in your document. Okay? So pay attention to the abbreviations that are so common for you that they've become like common language. State your interest and major qualifications. Example in the CV that we just saw, my interest is in research, my research interest is in quantum mechanics. I don't remember exactly the sentence they used. And this interest is stemming from my 2 years of research experience, right? Your qualification is your research experience, right? So I've given here another example that might be relevant to some of you. My research interest is in understanding the reproductive biology of vector mosquitoes. I have more than 12 months or more than 12 weeks of research experience in various laboratories in Kenya, investigating the life cycle of the mosquitoes that transmit malaria, dengue fever, and chikungunya. Your statement here might be different. The key is that in your intro, you immediately state your interest, and in 1 or 2 sentences, state where that interest comes from. If you don't have research experience, where did that interest come from? You weren't born that way. It came from somewhere, okay? So say what you want. Why are you writing? Why should I read this document, right? My academic and research experience have compelled me to pursue a PhD degree in artificial intelligence, and I would be greatly honored to conduct my thesis research with the outstanding researchers in the forensics department at the University of Lille. I have no idea if there's a department called like this at the University of Lille. This is just an example I'm giving. So if any of you is at Lille, don't quote me on this. It's just an example. Anytime you're communicating to an audience, you have to tell them what you want, right? For those of you who are familiar with the American culture, for example, when you call somebody, they'll pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's up, right? Hey, what's up? Coming from Africa, we were not familiar with that language. Now we're more familiar with it. But what that really means is, what's going on? In other words, why are you calling me? Get on with it, right? I don't have time to waste. It's not that harsh. It's not that mean, right? But that's kind of common in the culture here. It's expected that you don't waste people's time, right? It should be the same wherever you are. If you're communicating with anybody for anything, they should know exactly why. This applies to the professors you're going to be contacting for your recommendation letters. I'm sending you this email to request your support because I'm planning to apply to graduate school, and I believe your recommendation letters would make a great difference in my chances of getting an admission. That first paragraph should always say why you're writing to anybody, right? All right. And so in the main body, dive into your academic background, right? So have you taken any major courses that have shaped your interest or have inspired your research interest? And then in your research experience, as I mentioned in your CV, mention the topic, supervisor, hypothesis, main methods, your specific role. When I say role here, I really mean activities. What did you actually do? How many times did you do it? For how long? Just like that MIT student was doing it. In my first year, right, 2 years of experience, I co-authored one patent, right? And what impact has your research had on your research interests, right? So it's very, very important. Again, if you have publications, provide direct access as much as possible. Still in your main body, show your feet, right? I'm a student. I'm an an upper class honors student. I've taken major courses in computer science. I've done research experience for this much time. I've contributed this much. Now I believe I'm actually fit for your graduate program, right? And here's how I'm fit. I think the research of Professor XY would be a very area of research for me because it aligns with my research interests. You've already shown your research interests. You don't have to revisit them, right? Since Professor ABCD is doing research in this area, it would be great, for example, to work with them because their interests resonate with my own research experience in area, XYZ. Again, focus on the general direction of the research, but also give a few examples of the professor's research by focusing on your interests as they align with the professor's research and revisiting your own research experience to keep your document coherent, okay? Now, so you're a good fit, you have the experience. How are you going to contribute, right? You've shown what you've done, it's quantified, you've said your techniques, right? What have you learned? Notice that this is a general content information. It doesn't have to be necessarily organized as I'm organizing it here. You may, for example, include your contribution and experience in one paragraph. That's very well possible, right? But I've worked in 5 different research projects from different laboratories. And so I've learned how to work with people from different backgrounds. I've developed really good teamwork skills, how to take criticism and respond to criticism. I've learned critical thinking, right? Troubleshooting. For example, 2 months through my research project, my experiments failed terribly. And I had to reach out to a colleague who then came and showed me how things could work. And I sat down with them. They gave me 3 options and I completed 3 options and one of them worked. It's a storytelling in a way. It's just that you're showing with concrete examples, right? If you've written a manuscript, show what you actually did. And then in your conclusion, you have to state your reasonable long-term academic and professional goals that are aligned with your graduate school studies. So again, be careful with things like, starting research companies and those goals that are pretty grandiose. You don't even know if you're going to get your PhD. So make sure that your goals are reasonable. If you want to say, for example, now that your goal is to, after a PhD, continue through an academic postdoc position, gain more experience and become a research faculty, everybody will understand that, right? Now you all know what a postdoc is. Explain how the graduate program would help you attain your goals. So this is very important. Graduate schools need to know that they are making an impact on the future generations of researchers. And so when you use your own example to show how their instruction will help you attain your academic goals, you're basically telling them you're great, you're helpful, you have a noble mission, and that mission would actually be beneficial to me. And of course, thank them for reviewing your application. Thank them for their time and consideration. Okay. So I've said a lot. I've covered a lot today. It's been 3 hours. Here are the contact information. There's a contact form on our website. You all know this email. You've received a lot of email from the info account. This is also the education committee. We also check this email more or less regularly, and we can answer your inquiries from there. Just again, don't expect answers in a few hours because we are all volunteering and we're all super busy. We try and get to your messages as soon as we can. I think we've covered most of your inquiries. If there are any outstanding inquiries that any of you have, this is a good time to let me know, and we'll make sure that they are addressed. Right now, I'll take your questions if you have any. It's also been a very long day. If you feel like very long session, if you feel like you would rather email your questions afterwards, that also fine to me. Papa has a question. Let me see. So if you have a lot of experiences, but you have a limitation on the CV pages, you have to understand the philosophy of these people. You kind of have to ask yourself, why do they limit the CV page number? That's a good question, because early on I told you that the page number doesn't matter. Some programs will ask you to upload your CV, and so it could be as long as you want it in that case. Some programs may specify the page number. The reason why they do that is because they want you to pick the most relevant experiences on your CV. How do you know which ones are most relevant? I think I've kind of touched on that. It's your academic experiences. It's your research experiences. It's your extracurricular experiences that are directly related to your academic background. And so if you are a medical laboratory student and you spent a year in a hospital drawing blood, doing blood specimens and testing for diseases, that's an extracurricular activity that's going to be more relevant than saying I'm a pastor at a local church and I help feed people who are hungry. Which that's straightforward, right? Theodora, please, what if the project topic you worked on as an undergraduate is not directly in line with the course you want to do in grad school? I would say you will need to discuss this carefully with your mentor. You can tailor your interests so they still make sense. You can also explain why you want to pivot to a different research area. But the inspiration may still come from the research that the courses you've taken. So the example you gave is a good one, Theodora. So your research topic was in plant physiology, but you want to do microbiology as a graduate student, since you have a fair idea about that. Did your research in plant physiology affect at all your interest in microbiology? You could also find a lab that studies how microbes affect plant physiology, for instance. Now you have a match, right? So you're always looking at where interests align. You're looking at the intersections, okay? And if you're doing a 180-degree turn, you want to have to navigate that carefully with your mentor to see if they can help you write out that transition. And you can also continue to ask the questions on that WhatsApp group, by the way. And like I said, I'll try to get a number for Afrisnet pretty soon and add that WhatsApp, add it to the WhatsApp so you can also reach out. Yeah, so it's going to be tricky to convince somebody who is not, if somebody is doing research that's completely different from your research interest, then I don't know I don't know why. So if what they are working on is different from your experience, but you still want to work in their lab, then you have to explain why you want to make the switch. And you want to make that clear. And again, it's a conversation. I know that my research experience is not directly related to the direction of your laboratory. But because of ABCD, I'm really intrigued by your research. And I would be honored by a chance to be a graduate student in your lab if you are accepting new student. What I believe is that no interest comes out of the blue. Now, if the reason for you to try to move in a city, I mean, get in a lab is because your aunt or your fiance or your husband lives in that city and you want to live in that city, and that's the only thing you're going to tell the professor, I don't know if that will be exciting to them, right? And so the curiosity should be scientifically sound. It's okay to switch. Just say why, say where that interest came from. And then after you say that, you can say, even though my experience is different from your direct research line, I've learned these techniques that I think would be useful in your laboratory still and would help me become a successful graduate student in your lab. And again, you can navigate this more with your mentors. Okay. So the rest of the people are just saying thank you. I just want to say you're most welcome. I'm very happy that most of you found the session useful. And I'll stop sharing the PowerPoint presentation now. We've touched on a lot of things. Hopefully this was very helpful. Most importantly, hopefully this will prepare you for working with your mentors. We will be assigning you, we're gonna be working on that next week. We may have enough mentors to take everybody. If we do not, we are gonna give priority to STEM people, and it's gonna end up being a competitive process. In other words, we're gonna weigh things like your GPA. We're gonna read your statements that you've written to kind of see where you're at. But otherwise, this was also very fun, very exciting for me to do. I'm always happy to do anything I can do to help the future generations of African researchers. I'm here because other people help me. And I hope that I can do the same for you. And I'm also very happy and grateful for the many, many mentors who have joined our program this year that are going to help guide you through your graduate application.